So here at Hack RedCon, we've talked a lot about, companies, technologies, but every now and then it's kind of fun to just throw out some cool war stories. So I'm going to let you start this one off. Why don't you tell me a good Pentest story?
Okay. Yeah, so this was one of my favorite assessments that I've ever done. It was a hybrid physical IoT wireless sort of assessment. It was kind of vague on the scope, so I had a lot of flexibility on what I could actually do.
Oh, those are the lucky ones, man.
Yes. So the building was protected by a police guard.
Oh, so this was physical and digital?
Yes.
So you got to pull a full Ocean's 11 on this.
It was pretty
cool. That is the funnest job. I mean, just think about it for half a second. What do you do for a living? I'm a professional criminal. Who in the world gets to say that but us?
We get paid to commit felonies, right?
I know. Yeah. And we get the piece of paper, the get out of jail free card.
Yep. So this one, I had a lot of flexibility. The primary objective wasn't to go in and compromise the entire enterprise. That was not the goal. They wanted to know if someone could get in and actually get into the network and start causing damages. And that was kind of the full stop at the time before we moved on to phase 2. But the company wanted to stop after that certain point, which was great. I still get to be, Ocean's 11 as they're going into it. It was nice.
Okay, all right, so how did you dress?
Suit and tie.
Oh, suit and tie?
Suit and tie.
I don't think a suit and tie would work for me.
It doesn't work for everybody. So.
There are certain people that can pull off the suit and tie look. If I come in there, they're just going to be like, he stands out. What is one of these things is not like the others?
That's true, but it comes down to confidence.
Oh, absolutely.
If you come in, and that's exactly what I did to get in. So when I first walked into the front of the building, I had, I was in a suit and I had my laptop bag on me. Of course, I had my laptop with me. And the police guard at the time, he was like, hey, are you, asked me questions, about where I was supposed to be going. And I mentioned some names that I had just gotten off the internet.
I was going to say LinkedIn?
Yeah, actually LinkedIn was part of it, but I looked up the company. I went through their websites. I found some of their leadership. Not too high up the chain, because I knew if I mentioned, like the CEO.
Yeah, you can't go to the CEO.
Yeah,
any of the
you're looking
C-suite.
for more middle management.
And for anybody that's watching this right now, this technique is actually called OSINT.
Yes.
This is open source information technology. It's a way to actually try and gather information that you can use to help you in your assessments. So.
Yes, and a common term on the black hat side of things, it's often referred to as doxing.
I prefer doxing myself.
Yeah, that's what I came up on myself too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to that point, everybody throws it out there. LinkedIn has become our freaking living resumes.
It is, and it's making it quite easy for attackers to do things. Especially for phishing attacks, phishing attacks.
Especially when you add the AI involved. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I found really amazing, and we're going to get back to your war story, but we've been now in terms of deep fake, it only takes 8 seconds of digital audio to make an 80% voice match. Thank you, LinkedIn.
Yes. This is slightly off topic, but did you play Uplink back in the day?
I was never a gamer.
Oh, okay.
Never
okay. Awesome. Well, it was an old hacker game that you could just kind of simulate. It was back early 2000s, late 90s that it came out. But there's a voice recorder function that you could record where you make phone calls to actually get through different security things. And at the time, that blew my mind. I'm like, we're not going to be able to do that. But in today's age, it's common. It's happening.
Oh, one quick offshoot, and then we'll get back to your story. My publicist's sister was woken up at like 3 a.m. by what sounded like her niece screaming and crying. Man's voice comes on and says, "We've abducted your daughter. If you don't pay us, she will be put into human trafficking and all of this. And if you hang up, all bets are off." So they've immediately created an emotional situation. They've added the threat of not being able to hang up. Thankfully, she had the wherewithal to ask her husband, call my sister, and found out that her niece was safely, asleep in bed. But this is what the new scams are. They're taking
it's terrible
audio clips off of social media and using deepfake technology.
Well, I actually had a similar story. My grandmother was called, and they had every bit of information on me that they could communicate to her.
Were you in an accident?
No, I was in jail.
Oh, my nephew was in an accident with a pregnant woman and needed bond.
Yep, that's what it was. And it was like, hey, you got to come up with $5,000 bail right now, or we're going to potentially lock him up. He's facing felony charges. Got her all worked up.
Did she give up the numbers?
No.
My mom did.
Oh,
Yeah, it was interesting because my nephew was with me in Texas, and this call came from New York, and I'm like, there are typically going to be some flags in there, but my mom just didn't catch them.
Yes. So my grandmother, I had just had the conversation with her because she actually just was scammed just about a month prior. The tech support phone calls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then they get in there, they root your computer at that point, and then they for crypto mining or just more spam out. She ended up losing about $600. And so I set her down and I explained to her, I'm like, hey, these scare tactics that they hit you with, they're going to tell you everything's the worst thing ever, and you got to pay money to get things around. And I was like, if that ever happens to you again, Grandma, just call me. And it happened. She's like, Erickson wouldn't be in jail. So she called me immediately afterwards. And I'm like, no, everything's fine. And she's like, oh my gosh, thank gosh.
See, now, if somebody called somebody that knew me and was like, Len's in jail, they'd be like, well, this could have actually happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to your original story. So you're walking in, you got your suit and tie.
Yep, got my suit and tie. I have my laptop, and the cop stops me, and he's like, hey, what are you here for? And I was like, well, I actually work here. I know some middle management. I just forgot my badge. And he kind of looked me, I looked the part. I looked professional. And he's like, okay, cool. So just walk through the metal detector, and I was in at that point. But that was only step one.
Yeah, you still have to find a way to get into the network.
I had to get through another personnel barrier.
Oh, so they had multi-factored the physical access.
Yes, they did.
That's
yes.
impressive. It's nice to see that they did it. The fact that you bypassed it means that they're not doing something right.
They were close. And it actually scared me a little bit. So the first attempt when I went in there, because this assessment actually took me a couple of days, so I had to pull this stunt off multiple times.
Same place?
Same place.
Ooh.
Same place. So again, it kind of comes down to confidence. So there was it was a desk. You could think like receptionist type desk, and her job was to make sure that people got to the correct portions of the building, because a lot of it was closed off. They didn't want people wandering the halls or getting into things.
Restricted access.
Exactly. Yes. So when I first came in, she said, she was like, hey, what's your name? Because she wanted my badge and I didn't have one. So she thought I was just, kind of a guest. And I'm actually meeting somewhere. And I started pacing like I had to pee. Like, I'm sorry, I really have to go to the bathroom.
You used the bio excuse?
I used the bio excuse. And she was kind of an older, I want to say old, but she was an older lady, I'd say she was about my mom's age, And she was like, oh, honey, okay, go, the bathroom's right over there. So I went to the bathroom. And at this point, I'm nervous. I'm sweating. This is the first time
you're in the stall going, all right, what now?
Yeah, I'm at the sink. I'm washing my face off, because I'm looking rough, and I just sat in there for a while. And I'm like, okay, maybe she'll forget that I'm actually in here. So I left the bathroom. She turned around to to flag me down again, and I just reacted. I grabbed my phone, and I was like, yes, sir. No, I'm in the building right now. I'm on my way over. What's the conference room number so I can get there? And I just kind of waved to her, and she kind of looked at me funny, but again, I was in the suit, and I was just I was trying to act like I belonged there, and I was comfortable with my environment. So I got past her. Now I'm in a bunch of hallways that I don't know where I'm going. So, and I can't break out my laptop just yet.
And that's another thing to all the listeners here. It is not uncommon for us to be either in a physical location or drop into a system that we don't necessarily know where we're going yet. So this is a very common situation, and that'll make you think twice.
Yeah, the stress level goes up just a little bit. Your blood pressure will rise. And so what I had to do is I was looking around just trying to find my way. So I was looking at signs. Fortunately for me, which was great, they had monitors down the hallways. A lot of times it was just, here's the weather, or here's a little bit about the company, or if there was an event coming up. Mm-hmm. But it kind of allowed me to kind of gauge on where certain things were happening. So I caught on where the conference rooms might be, and just kind of workspaces. So I thought, these are probably going to be quieter, hopefully. I'm going to go down there, maybe I can find an empty room and, work myself in. That's exactly how it played out. Empty hallway, found an unlocked door. Most of them were locked, and it was just like a little tiny conference room, And they had desks set up, and right on the wall was the guest password for the Wi-Fi.
Of course it was.
Yep. But it wasn't that easy at the same time. So I sit down, I'm like, okay, I left the lights off so no one would come in. And I fired up, I jump on the Wi-Fi, get on the Wi-Fi, nothing. I can't get in.
Well, of course not. It's a guest Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, it's a start at least. So I'm going, okay, if we're not going to get anywhere from the guest Wi-Fi, I did see, doing my reconnaissance, I did see a couple other networks out there. Of course, they were locked down, WPA2s. And I was like, I could try and break into these, but I feel like I'm on a serious time crunch because if somebody walks by and sees me, with my gear out,
Especially in a dark room.
Yes, yeah. So I'm like, all right, next best thing, let's plug into the wall. Well, I found a drop, Ethernet port, plugged it in. It was dead. Didn't work at all.
Okay, smart switch. They were smart enough to turn that
smart
port off.
Yes, and I actually went throughout the entire assessment. I went into 3 different mini rooms like that, and each drop was dead.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that was one of those positive observations that you give in your report.
Yeah.
Say, hey, because when you give an assessment, when you give the report back to to management, you tore them apart, but you don't want to get people fired. So you want to give them the positives of things that they did right, so they come back to you next year and get you in it. But that being said, as I was walking around, I told you, or as I was in the different rooms, I was picking up on other wireless networks, and one of them had an interesting name to it, and it kind of reminded me of projectors, and it was like a company name. So I did some quick research on my phone because I didn't have internet, right? And I found some default credentials for that particular wireless access point. It was for projectors, and it became standard. So jumped into the projectors. Default credentials. I could turn them on. I could broadcast anything I wanted to, but not just there, throughout the entire floor. They were all interconnected. So I'm like, this is cool, but it still doesn't
get you to your
still
objective.
doesn't get me where I'm trying to get to. So I'm like, all right, let's try something else. Maybe I need to go to a different area of the building. So got my laptop bag put away, and I start roaming the hallways slowly. I'm not trying to be all like super creepy,
you got to be inconspicuous.
Still got to be confident. And I found my way into I could kind of best describe it as like a coffee snack area.
Like a break area.
Like a break area, yeah. Well, in the back, they had some printers. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, printers.
Printers, that's a really good entry point in some cases, especially if they're misconfigured on their access points, of those. And I'm like, printers, let's do this. I go in there, and right on one of their printers is a how-to guide for controlling the monitors in the hallway, with the password sitting right there. So I'm like, there's no way, it can't be that easy.
Don't write your passwords down.
Yup. So I compromised those. I could change the
I'm sorry,
strings.
I can't allow you to say compromised.
All right, I logged into them because it was free.
With all due respect, we earn a compromise.
You're right. This was too free. This was way too free.
That was a Nerf toss.
But it was cool. So I wrote it down. I'm like, hey, I can change this. I can redirect traffic if I wanted to, put up explicit images of,
You could do some serious reputational damage.
Yes, you can. Yes. So I took that down, but I still, the printers, they were networked, but I couldn't just start unplugging them. It was too open of an area.
Plus you got to think when you're in these situations, they have monitoring on all of their equipment more than likely. So if something goes offline, they're going to know.
Which, based on the security posture I've seen so far, the drops were disabled.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi was locked down. I'm like, you're probably right. I don't need to be messing with this too much. Plus,
however, printer drivers and trying to go through the printer as a pivot point is still an option.
That's what I wanted to do until people started coming in the break area.
Damn it. Hungry people.
Yep. So at that point, and they were talking. They were starting to eyeball me a little bit because at that point I did look out of place. They were well dressed, khakis, polo sort of deal.
Yeah, they were business casual.
You
were executive,
and I was executive. So I started getting some eyes. I kind of panicked a little bit. I'm like, back to the restroom. So I went back over there, and so as I'm sitting back in there, I'm kind of relaxing. I'm like, there's got to be somewhere else I can go. So I went down one hallway, and I was looking specifically for the fire exit plan map. It's just for safety reasons. Like, hey, here's the blueprint of the building. Here's where you go in case of fires, right?
Yeah, that'll give you a layout of all the corridors.
Exactly. And one of those said there was like not a restaurant.
Cafeteria?
Like cafeteria. Yeah, it was cafeteria for the employees. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in there. And I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to try and just blend in a little bit since people were starting to eye me a little bit. Get some food, look like I'm supposed to be there. So I go in there, and I get a Coke. I sit down, I'm thinking to myself, all right, what am I going to do? So there's potential cameras, the security cameras I can maybe check for. I saw something previously about HVAC. I'm like, all right, well, maybe we can look into something else. I was kind of grasping at straws at this point. Well, I thought, let's try Wi-Fi again. I'm in a completely different area of the building. So I had my adapter pushed into my laptop bag. I didn't get the best signal, but I didn't want it to look like I was, I was doing the dirty, right? And I found that the cafeteria had
their own Wi-Fi?
They had their own Wi-Fi, right? Open. Said it was open. But it was MAC filtered.
Solar.
Yeah, it was a MAC filter. So I'm like, all right, it's open. We got it. We're in.
So now all you got to do is find a system, get the MAC address off of that, and clone it.
Yes. Yes. But here was the tricky part. There was only one device on the Wi-Fi network that was whitelisted. That was the only one connected. And it was, and I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it was the Apple Pay device at the registers.
Point of sale.
Yep. Yeah, the point of sale device. And that was the only one. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, I have the MAC address, but I can't put this device offline. We can't have that collision if I try to use it because they're actually, they're doing business. There's actually,
that would be
definitely
instantly known.
Instantly known. So I left. I grabbed my car later after hours. Well, it wasn't entirely after hours.
I was going to say, did you go up to the outside of the building near the cafeteria?
Yes, I did. And I sit there and waited until they closed up shop. As soon as the cafeteria closed, jumped right on, bam, I was in the network. Mission accomplished.
I love that. My story is nowhere near that cool. But that is awesome. So how long did it take you to get through that whole operation?
3 days.
3 days on that one?
3 days, yeah. And that's just because, as I was walking around, people began, to eyeball me. The receptionist at the front actually started waving hi to me about day 3. She just recognized me. She's like, hi, good morning, hon.
Hi.
Yep. And the cop even, he started to recognize me. I became, like a sort of a known presence as long as I was in the right areas.
You've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you can portray the fact that you're supposed to be there, confidence is one of our biggest tools in this industry. I got 2 that are nowhere near as cool or as complicated, but the first one is, these aren't so much hacker stories, but I am the cyborg. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite cyborg stories is this implant right here is actually a credit card.
Oh, neat.
So I can tap to pay with my hand. And the first time I ever used this particular implant was at an Avis rent-a-car in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm sure we've all been to the rental car line. The lines in those things are like 45 minutes.
It's always rough, yep.
So I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm like, man, I'm thirsty. Walk over to the vending machine, get myself a Coke. Walk back over into the line, start drinking. Again, this older woman, not old, but sees what happens, walks up, and proceeds to beat the hell out of the vending machine trying to get a free soda.
Somebody was thirsty.
So, and then after that, the looks that this woman gave me as I'm sitting there enjoying my beverage, like, El Diablo. But, so that to me was one of the funnier ones. But in terms of the actual engagement, I think one of my favorites was we were given this assignment of trying to, once again, the same thing, get on the network and prove that we could do it. Mm-hmm. But I went about it a completely different way. So I'm like, we need information. How do we get it? And during our reconnaissance of the building, we discovered that they were on a bi-weekly schedule with Iron Mountain, the data destruction company. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen like the shred-it bins.
Yes.
So I went out and rented a white box truck, got myself a pair of khaki pants, one of those blue Iron Mountain looking polos, and a hat that just was the right color, didn't have the logo on it or anything else.
That's a huge commitment for an assessment to go out and rent vehicles as well.
Well, it wasn't that big of a thing at the time because it was actually it was one of our first engagements, and we were like, we don't care how much we have to spend, we have to get through this and we have to succeed. This is where we were, you're building your reputation. So I walked in and I was like, yeah, I'm here for the shred-it bins.
And it worked?
And they were like, oh, okay. So I went around, I collected 4 of these things, wheeled them out to my box truck, and drove away with them. And then we sat and sifted through it until we found there were emails, there were passwords, there was financial information. So the ability to get into the network after that, it was extremely easy.
That in and of itself is a massive compromise and a huge oversight in their security posture.
Oh, yeah.
As you said, with those old hard drives, those are basically the keys to the system right there, to the whole network.
Everything. And the fact that everybody looks at those shredded bins as if they're, once you put it in there, the general, mental state is, oh, I don't have to worry about it.
It's
anymore.
trash now. It's gone.
It's gone.
It's out of my hands.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
I rolled 4 of those huge bins out, stuck them in the back of a truck, and drove away with them.
That is impressive.
So, yeah, I would love to sit down sometime in the future. We should get more people in on this and just do like a war stories whole entire podcast.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I don't. There's a couple times out there you'll find some war stories, but something to be. We need more of that. We need by telling these stories, we get people excited about the industry and the professions, and we want to bring them in. Plus, they're cool.
Well, one last one, just and if anybody that reads my book, Human Hack, I go into a lot of the details of this. But the reason I got the biosensing implant magnet, one of the byproducts of this is I can actually feel electromagnetic fields and currents. And if you have unshielded Romex and power cables, I can trace your electrical by running my hands over the wall.
That's crazy.
So I have a friend of mine in Texas who owned a auto repair shop, and the dude was so anti-security it wasn't funny. Didn't have lights behind his building, no cameras, and he was using magnetic locks on the back of the shop, and he never would actually go and lock the back door at the end of the night. And I'm like, dude, somebody can get into this. He's like, if you think you can get into it, do it. Oh, you just made a bad mistake, dude. So I waited until early in the morning, go out there, ran my fingers over, okay, there's the Romex, followed it over. And what most people don't realize about magnetic locks is when the power gets disconnected, they go into what is called drop-down failsafe, which means that the doors unlock. This is by design. So that way, if there's ever a disaster or an emergency personnel, fire crews, they can get into the buildings. So I literally found the wires, took a drill behind his building while standing on a 2-step step ladder, drilled a hole through the side of his building in the mortar between the bricks, used a little hook, pulled the Romex through, and hooked up an actual light switch, turned it off, walked into his shop, called him from his desk.
That'll definitely get the point across. Did you try any other bypass techniques before you went to that level, such as the canned air spray?
I went that way specifically because I did have the canned air, and there were a lot of other magnetic bypass methods that I had as a secondary. But I had just gotten the magnet, and I was like, I want to use this. I want to see if I can make this work.
Right.
And once I was able to catch the signal, it was like, oh yeah, we're doing this. We're doing this.
You almost sold me on one of these. I almost want one now.
I'll tell you what, the biosensing magnet is, in my opinion, if you want to know what it feels like to actually expand the human experience, don't get me wrong, the NFCs and the RFIDs and all that stuff, they're cool. But when I pop somebody's phone with this, I don't feel it. It's digital. Mm-hmm. But the biosensing magnet, if I get too close to an electromagnetic field or current or anything like that, it tingles almost like a spidey sense.
So I imagine going through a hospital is tricky.
I can walk through the hallways where the MRIs are, and I'm like, oh, that one's on, that one's not, that one's on. But it has made me very acutely aware of the wireless transmissions that our bodies are being bombarded with on a daily basis. So it will definitely change your interpretation of how you interact with the world around you.
That's pretty incredible. So let me ask you this. I know you have a book. If someone were to be interested in pursuing more knowledge on this, or maybe even getting some of their own, what's a good resource?
Well, honestly, the best resource, in my opinion, would be my book, Human Hack, My Life and Lessons as the World's First Augmented Ethical Hacker, available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon and wherever great books are sold. Now, having said that, there is a couple of really good resources. Biohack.me is a really good website. The best and most up-to-date resources would be the forums on dangerousthings.com.
Okay.
Dangerous Things is actually a consumer-grade implant manufacturer that's based out of Seattle, Washington. And everything that I have in my body up to this point has all been Dangerous Things products. I've now left the range of what their capabilities are, and I'm dealing in straight one-of-a-kind prototypes from this point forward.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'll be honest, that's a little over my head, and that's curious. I want to dive in this, and it really makes me, wonder if, as we move forward, especially with like physical assessments, how those tools could.
They are amazing.
I mean, you've already bypassed the door. You've already proven that you can do that.
Absolutely.
So, and you can't even see it.
This particular implant right here is a MyFair Classic, and it can do Prox, Diamond, Pyramid, Indala, and 326 other physical access protocols. So if you can skim the badge, write it down to the implant. Here's one of the other things that most people don't know about the implants is because they're inside the body, they're covered under HIPAA and GDPR for privacy laws.
Oh.
So I actually walk around with all of my offensive tools, and the authorities can't even ask me about them.
Let me ask you this question, because now I'm really curious.
Shoot.
Do you have, or are there implants for you to clone RFID badges?
No. Now, the thing when it comes to the current consumer purchasable implants is they are all passive, every single one of them.
Okay.
They're all within the NFC or RFID spectrum. Now, there are some things that you can do if you want to go off the beaten path. There was a group back in 2015 called Grindhouse Wetware. They were the original bunch of whack jobs like me that decided to start playing in this field. Any internal power becomes difficult because the human cells start suffering degradation at about 40 degrees Celsius. So even with the prototypes that I'm working on, 90% of what the research is how to keep the temperatures on these things down.
Okay.
They include internal thermal sensors that will step down the CPU if it gets above a certain temperature. That is the major problem. And the only implantable technology that has any type of power is medical grade only at this point.
I see. So like
pacemakers,
yes.
Stem pain management, cochlear implants, even the new sleep apnea implant. Anything that with any internal power must be regulated by the FDA.
Okay.
But we also in America have the right to experiment on ourselves, which is actually written into something. I don't remember what, but we do have the ability to do whatever we want to ourselves. So some of the original grinders, I know it's what we call do-it-yourself augmented humans. They were using 2-part epoxy and standard nickel cadmium batteries at one point. So, lithium ion, definitely probably not something you want to stick inside your body. Your body is 90% water. Water and lithium ion really don't mix together, and I don't feel like blowing up like a Tesla on a freight ship.
That's a valid point. Definitely understood there. So.
But, where we go in the future, and to that point is one of the questions that I like to throw out at people as being a futurist is somebody like me with the ability to communicate with technology on the same protocols going to be one of the ways that we can keep the human relevant in this new deepfake AI ML society?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting thought on that, and I'm still being introduced to to the implants on how this works. So I can't really speak too much to that point, but I'm starting to see the value behind that, and I think that's a realistic possibility. As we were just mentioned, you bypass that door with that, so that is not something that the AI or you have to have physical element on that. But if that could actually play into networked devices, I know you mentioned the power thing, but it could be coming.
Oh, it's coming.
Yes.
Especially with the advent of a lot of the graphene technologies around battery storage. I expect there to be massive leaps in implantable technology over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And if you ask me, my plan is when my time comes, I want to look like something straight out of Cyberpunk. Some kind of, high gain microphone in my ear, miracle ear. No, I want a dish mic. I want to be able to hear what they're talking about in the conference room over there while I'm having this conversation with you.
Which, would be really beneficial on some assessments.
Absolutely. But in terms of being a pen tester, I know about 3 or 4 different pen test companies where they have individuals, their red teamers are actually using the implants as initial bypasses. The ability to pop up, especially when it comes to initial footholds, RFID and the ability to get somebody to hand you their phone. If it's an Android, I can download Trojans. Actually managed to download a malicious APK and install it in under 12 seconds.
Whoa, that's impressive.
You know, and I can keep with a little sleight of hand and everything. I can have you looking up here while this hand's doing something else. I hand you your phone back. I'm already in it. I can use URL redirections to beef sites. You know, I even came up with a way with multiple implants and a little Raspberry Pi Zero W to do a complete, what I call an implant man in the middle. Through the NFC, I can actually join you to a specific SSID Wi-Fi.
Okay, yeah, that's already, just from being able to redirect traffic, like you said, just to beef sites, and now those access points, forcing that through.
And I'd stick a transparent proxy on the back side of the web, the hotspot.
You pretty much got, you're in at that point.
I can also do what I call implant-based smishing and phishing, where, you know, when it comes to those types of attacks, the hardest thing for the attacker to do is to convince the guy, you know, the target to actually click on the link. Well, what if it wasn't coming from something that was fake? NFC triggers also allows the ability for a preset email or an SMS. So all I have to do is get a hold of, you know, like, you work for RedSeer, so does Dan. You know, what if I walked up, hey, Dan, let me see your phone for a minute. Okay. The minute it charges, I send you a text directly from Dan with a hyperlink in it. You're not going to think anything wrong with it.
No, you're not. And that's, as you said, so I've personally gotten those text messages from one of my managers to try to get me to go get a gift card. And the first thing that, well, I knew it was false right off the bat, but the number was incorrect. So that's usually the first red flag.
Yeah,
right
we
there.
all know what to look for. Is the number correct? Is the wording correct? You know, does it sound like our person that we know? I did this just as a test with one of my buddies, you know, and I was like, hey, dude, you know, I'm having a problem with this customer, man. Can you check this link for me? Of course, he hit it.
That is outstanding.
And it came from it will come from either the default email or the default phone number of the device that it's coming from. So there's no way to prove that it was fake, because it's not. I am a sneaky jerk.
No, and I think you're definitely on the cusp of the frontier on that side. I have to say that I'm thoroughly impressed already, especially from your Warstory alone. You know, so I mean, I'm thinking about mine. You know, I told you about getting into the building, and you know, could that have possibly helped me out? You know, trying to find an entry point. So potentially, it makes you think. You know?
It really does. And the other thing is, when it comes from a pen tester's perspective, and this is something I discovered during the research for the book, you can commit a crime and not be a criminal. There is something called mens rea, which is Latin for essentially malicious intent. You have to be, you can stumble in to do something that may break a law, but you didn't mean to, and you're not a criminal. So to your point, you know, when you were sitting in those conference rooms, you had all your tools with you. If you were caught and the police searched that bag,
it'd have been over. It would have been over. Assessment killed. I would have had to call my contact, potential get out of jail free card. You know, any number of things could happen, and especially when you're dealing with armed guards, police or not. That is a huge fear, because if they do, you know, go through things. And I'm actually glad you mentioned that up, because I was in a suit and I mentioned some manager's name. They did not search my laptop bag. He knew it was going to flag through the metal detector, but he's like, it's a laptop, and he let me through anyway. So absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if at any point in time I had been caught in a conference room, or if that police officer had opened my bag,
you're done.
I'm done. We got lockpicks in there. We have, you know, Wi-Fi tools. You know, we've got, you know, cloners.
You have everything that needs to send you to jail.
Yep.
Whereas me, if I can play my cards right, I can load the chips before I walk in. And even if you catch me in your data center, what are you going to do? You're going to call operations. They're going to stick me in a corner. They're going to call the police. And when they get there, we need to search you. Okay, go ahead and search me. I don't even have a cell phone on me.
The only thing I have you on is just being in restricted space.
And even if they look at the cameras, they're going to see my hand come up, and I've gotten to the point where I can do it in such a way that the chip comes into the energy field of the reader as I'm bringing my hand up to the door, and it just looks like the door opens. They can check the logs, but when they search me, they're not going to find anything. They don't see me with any type of counterfeit card or any other tool. They have to let me go.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. That's going to be super beneficial. And I think right now, maybe because it's new, at least this is my first thought dealing with this.
It's still it's
a little scary at the same time.
It's cutting edge. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, the way I said it once was I use bleeding edge technology, so bleeding edge that I literally had to bleed to get it.
That's a good point.
And there are a lot of people that won't do this. This is definitely an extreme thing. Especially when you consider the fact that all of these were done with absolutely zero anesthetic.
Ooh.
You need a minimum of a nursing license or a nurse's assistant's license to be able to administer anesthetic. So, and you don't go to doctors for this.
Well, it's not approved.
Well, how would that call even go?
Right.
Hi, Dr. So-and-so. Yes, I bought this thing off the internet that I want you to, with all of your medical malpractice insurance, to put in my body. Yeah, it doesn't work. So we use body mechanics, the same people that would split your tongue or gauge your ears.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are all done off the books. And a shout out to my mechanic, Pineapple Tangora Shaman Modifications over in Austin, Texas. Pineapple was actually the very first body mechanic to ever start dealing in this kind of stuff on a consumer grade. And he actually put the very first Tesla key into a human being.
That's really cool.
And the thing is, when he did it, this wasn't like the chip you can buy off a dangerous thing. Somebody actually took their little key fob and basically pulled the NFC chip off the circuit board. They bioencapsulated it and he implanted it.
And it worked. Wow.
The entire Tesla, it's more than just this, but at a 1,000-foot level, the key is an NFC. There's more security around it than just raw NFC, but that's the primary protocol that allows that thing to run.
Yeah, this is really enlightening. I'm actually glad we're having this conversation.
I've spent my life definitely trying to bypass, and even when I was a black hat, I was never one of the malicious black hats. To me, it was always me versus the security. I mean, granted, when I was in the gangs and things, they may have done stuff after I broke in, but for me, it was just about the lock.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty common in the industry as well. A lot of us who've been around a while, we did a lot of stupid stuff as teenagers.
Oh yeah,
things we can't admit to. Of course, they never happened. We've been innocent the entire time.
Yes, I am a fine, law-abiding citizen, and I always will be.
Yep.
But I really appreciated the conversations, man.
Yeah, this has been great. Really enjoyable. I'm
gonna have to have you on my podcast. I'm half of the Cybercognition. We're gonna have to bring you on and let you have a conversation with my partner Hutch and I.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Just let me know.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Yep.